In the golden age of American wealth, one palace stood above all: the 147-room Whitemarsh Hall known as America's Versailles. Built to be fireproof, it guarded priceless art when even the Met feared war's reach. But inside these marble walls, something impossible happened. Fires sparked in sealed chambers, smoke curled from stone long after the lights went out, and no theory ever held. If the nation's safest mansion could not survive, what did it mean for faith in progress, or the lives built atop forgotten ruins? The mystery of what really happened to America's Versailles Palace begins where logic fails and the flames refuse to die. Whitemarsh Hall stretched across more than 100,000 square feet, 6 stories stacked above and below ground, with 3 entire levels hidden beneath the lawns. Its 147 rooms could swallow a city block. The architect, Horace Trumbauer, mapped out corridors wide enough for 2 carriages to pass, marble halls lined with imported stone, and ceilings so high that winter air echoed in the galleries. There were ballrooms, a gymnasium, a movie theatre, and entire wings for art and tapestries. The gardens, designed by Jacques Graeber, formed a green ocean on all sides, but the true marvel lay inside the walls. The mansion's skeleton was steel and poured concrete, engineered to shrug off fire, rot, and even time itself. Utility blueprints from 1920 show an independent power plant, its own waterworks, and a full refrigeration plant, rare even among the Gilded Age elite. Every floor was piped for temperature control, every vault sealed against moisture. A historian once called it a fortress for art, not just a home. During the war, when the Metropolitan Museum of Art needed sanctuary for its treasures, Whitemarsh Hall's fireproof reputation made it the obvious choice. In those years, curators trusted the estate more than the Met's own stone vaults. The ambition was absolute: build a house that nothing could threaten, not weather, not accident, not the passage of decades. Yet the blueprints and bravado only deepen the puzzle. What could possibly bring down a palace designed to be invulnerable? In early 1942, as the world braced for war, Whitemarsh Hall became the unlikely vault for America's cultural lifeblood. The Metropolitan Museum of Art, fearing the devastation seen in London and Paris, quietly leased the abandoned estate and began a relocation of unprecedented scale. Over 90 truck convoys, each flanked by armed guards and carrying cargo valued at $1 million per load, threaded through back roads to reach the mansion's gates. The operation was so secret that even local officials were kept in the dark. Inside, the transformation was swift and methodical. Custom steel pipe racks, welded on site, lined entire galleries. Hundreds of paintings hung edge to edge, while mummies and tapestries disappeared into the cool, dry vaults below. The kitchens were converted into a restoration lab. Only a handful of Met staff knew the full extent of what was hidden behind the estate's locked doors. Hourly patrols circled the perimeter, and a single watchdog prowled between the building and the barbed wire fence. On paper, Whitemarsh Hall was the safest place in America for art. Its steel frame and concrete walls promised immunity from fire, flood, or sabotage. The museum's own vaults in Manhattan seemed less secure by comparison. Yet the very measures that define the mansion's reputation, its engineered stillness, its fortress-like calm, posed an unspoken question. What if the danger wasn't outside? The paradox of perfect safety cast a long shadow, one that would linger long after the last masterpiece left the hall. The first fire broke out in a guest suite sealed since the last staff had left. No one had entered for weeks. The doors were locked from the outside, the windows latched and dusted over. Inside, firefighters found a pattern they could not explain. The centre of the marble floor was scorched black, the stone itself cracked by heat, yet the walls and ornate plaster ceiling were untouched. No furniture, no curtains, not even a scrap of paper remained to feed a flame. The room was empty except for a faint, acrid haze. The official log described it as spontaneous combustion of debris, but there was nothing left to combust. Power had been cut to the entire wing. No lightning, no faulty wiring. The weather outside was dry and windless. Firefighters checked every inch for signs of entry or tampering. No footprints, no forced locks, no broken glass. What struck them most was the heat. Even after the fire was out, the marble radiated warmth for hours, as if the stone itself had stored the blaze. The edges of the room were cool to the touch, but the centre pulsed with residual energy. It was as though the fire had started from below, rising up through solid stone, leaving a perfect ring of untouched floor around a single blackened core. The rest of the house remained cold and silent. Only the suite bore the mark, a burn with no cause, in a room no one could enter or escape. On windless nights, neighbours along Stotesbury Avenue scanned the mansion's windows for signs of movement. Instead, they reported a different kind of presence. Pale, wavering light flickering behind the glass, sometimes greenish, sometimes white. The house had been locked for months, yet the glow returned, drifting from room to room, always in parts of the building farthest from the gates. Patrol cars circled the perimeter, headlights sweeping the lawns, but found nothing. No footprints, no broken locks, no sign that anyone had crossed the fence. Within days of each sighting, smoke would snake out from a shuttered window. The pattern repeated itself, a faint light, then a fire in a sealed room, always on nights so still that even the trees stood silent. Residents grew uneasy. Some began to keep their curtains drawn, convinced the house watched them back. Stories spread about the warmth that lingered long after each blaze. After one fire, a neighbour pressed her hand to the stone and recoiled. She said it felt like the inside of a bread oven, though the night air had dropped below freezing. Emergency logs from the township note the odd timing. All incidents occurred after midnight, never during storms or power surges. Officers recorded their own confusion. No evidence of trespass, no accelerant, no natural cause. Yet the windows kept glowing, and the fires kept coming. By the end of the decade, the phrase, "the house that smoulders," had entered local vocabulary. Fear spread quietly, not from what people saw, but from what they could not explain. Thermal scans mapped heat blooming deep inside Whitemarsh Hall, in rooms untouched by flame. Engineers puzzled over the readings. No electricity, no gas, just the core of the building radiating warmth like a kiln. A retired firefighter, called back to consult, described the sensation as walking into a furnace with no visible source. He recalled pressing his palm to a marble wall and feeling it pulse, as if the stone itself was alive. Crews searched for hidden wiring, chemical traces, even pockets of trapped gas. Nothing. Chemical analysis of scorched marble turned up no accelerant, no residue. The phrase passed among the demolition team, "fire from inside the stone." Theories stacked up, phantom currents, pyrophoric minerals, even curses, but every official file closed with the same line, cause undetermined. The final blaze began with a sound like splitting stone. Then a shaft of blue fire shot up the main staircase, visible from the road, burning straight through marble and plaster. A demolition worker on site for the morning shift later described the heat as unnatural. He watched as the marble steps sagged and fused, their surfaces running like wax, while the old wooden railings just above stayed untouched. Firefighters arrived to find the building's core pulsing with energy, but no open flames remained. Even after the last hoses ran dry, the air inside shimmered with heat. Weeks later, inspectors found foundation blocks still warm to the touch. One crewman swore his electric drill burned out the instant it touched the stone. Long after the ruins had cooled, threads of smoke curled from the soil, as if the ground itself refused to let go. Whitemarsh Hall stood for just 59 years. Its 147 rooms and steel-reinforced walls once considered a model of safety and permanence. Yet, historical records and eyewitness reports confirm a pattern of unexplained fires, beginning soon after its closure and repeating for decades. investigators documented intense localized heat, strange light phenomena, and residual warmth in the structure long after each incident. No official inquiry ever identified a cause. Arson, electrical faults, and natural explanations were all ruled out by fire marshals. The final demolition in the 1980s revealed melted marble and lingering ground heat, details recorded in inspection logs. Today, brief, unexplained fires are still reported on the land where Whitemarsh Hall once stood. The evidence remains. A building designed to protect the priceless proved vulnerable to forces still not understood. The complete story of America's Versailles Palace remains unsolved, preserved only in documents, photographs, and the questions that survive its ashes.